I have started the recording. Now let's connect our database. Right, we have these three tables, right?
Yeah.
So let's check data from users table, or instead of user, let's use orders table. Okay, but the thing, okay, we have amount in the orders table. Okay. Product 1 is of 100 and this. Let's try to change. First thing, let's insert few rows in the order table. Public products. So 4 items there, right? Cake of 750. So insert into and okay, only 3 users. Cool. So 1 2. There is no order for Ashish. Okay. So insert into public orders values. Then 5. Then 3. Okay. Second item would be the user ID, then product ID would be 4, and then 750, and then now. Let's add more orders. So in orders table, user 1 has ordered twice and 2 also ordered twice. Cool. So let's make brown bread also. Let's make sure that 5 orders and brown bread as well. 6, and insert into user ID. Okay, user ID should be 3. My bad, 3, and then there's order for 3 as well. And then okay, we have to update order as well. Let's insert a new user as well. Public users. So 1, and then Nikhila, and then unknown, and then nikhila@gmail.com, and then +91 and this, and now. Okay, 1 already exists. Let's add 4. Okay, and let's make 4 out of something. Orders values 1, and Ashish utilize 4, and then product she ordered should be 1, the amount should be 100, and the current timestamp current timestamp does not exist. Okay, 1 already exists. So orders, let's check first how many orders are there now. 6 orders are there, so let's make it 7. Cool. So now we have the data. Let's check the data, but it's still the 100 second product. So let's check the price of product number second. Public products. The price of brown bread is 50.57. So let's update public where product id equals to 2. Okay, why is this not a column? Amount is a column name. Cool. Now let's see our orders table now. So now it has different data, right? It has data, right? Now,
Okay.
so we have updated the data. So now what we have to do, we need to see the group by, right? One thing is group by, another thing is saving clause, right? So we know
Okay.
right now if I want to get some data like products, give me product, give me every column from public users, public orders where amount is greater than 100. This is the filter that I am using, right, to reduce the number of rows. But I want every column, right? This we have covered in yesterday class session.
Okay.
So now what I want to do, out of this data, right, I want the sum. I want the sum of user, like this is a user right over here. So I want the sum of amount that user 1 has ordered. So what I can do for once, I can do select and then I can do user ID. I can say okay, instead of user ID I can just directly do sum and amount, right, from public orders where ID equals to 1, right? So I got 100.
Oh.
So let's see, because I used ID equals to 100, right? I need to use user ID. Now I get 250.57, right? So if we
Okay.
see user ID 1 has made these two orders for 200, then this one order of 50.57, so total is 250.57, right? So what I can do, I want the user ID as well. User ID. Okay. Okay, cool. So see over here I'm getting an error, right? I'm getting an error, right?
Yeah.
And read the error. It's saying that if I want orders.user ID, then it should appear in the group by clause or to be used in the aggregate function,
Okay.
right? So in this scenario I cannot get the user ID directly, and we'll going to dive deep into that why is this the reason. Also, the thing that I want with my query is that I want user ID, right, and the total sum of it, right? What we had done with this query is a specific value I have got, right? A specific value for one user, right? If I'm going to use this query, then I have to go again and again type different users, right? Instead of one I need to type 2, then I need to check type 3. I don't want to write this query again and again by changing. We have only 4
Okay.
users, then it's doable. But if we have millions users, then it is not doable, right?
Okay.
So this is the thing that we want for now. So the thing is, we have seen in the yesterday class aggregate functions, right?
Yeah.
So what happens, aggregate functions combine one and more columns, right? More column data, and then give us the aggregate value of it, right? Like the
Yeah.
count number of rows, it counts the number of rows, right? Instead of giving 8 rows, it gives only single data of count number. If I want sum, then it's not going to give me all the, if I want sum of all the amount, right? So it's not going to give me all the column names, right? It will give me just the total sum of all the products that has been ordered. So if I do sum and then I do amount from public orders, right, I get this number, right, 1901. But the thing
Okay.
is, why I am unable to get the user ID with it? This will give me an error, right, that please use it in the group by clause or aggregate function, right? The
Okay.
reason is this value, the value that we are getting, this value is not associated with a single column, right? So which user ID it will provide?
Okay.
This value is not associated with a single row, right? This is
Row. Yeah.
associated with the entire data, right?
Yeah. Entire rows. All rows it will take.
All
Yeah.
rows it is associated with. But I cannot, that's why I cannot select the user ID. It would be ambiguous, right, which one to select,
Much.
because there is no one to select, because it's a combination of all of them, right? That's why it's saying that if you want user ID, you can group by, you can use a group by clause or use something in aggregate function. So what it's saying that okay, we cannot, because it has, the query that you have written has multiple user ID, right? So we cannot give you any single user ID. What you can do, you can group by user ID, so that user ID will become unique, right? Because
Okay.
if I group by user ID, then what happens, the user ID will remain same, right? Because it will, if I try to aggregate 100 by user ID, then one user ID will be there, one user ID will be there, one user ID will be there, right? And the sum function will sum these three items that we have seen earlier. So the
Okay.
total will be 250.57. But the
Okay.
thing is, in this particular scenario, when I'm grouped by the user ID, then one thing is sure, that the user ID will remain same, right? Because I'm grouping by user ID.
Hmm.
So for all these three columns I have grouped, the user ID will remain same. That's why I can access only that thing by which I am grouping the data.
Okay.
So let's see now. First thing, select sum and amount from public orders. Now I say please group by user ID, right? Then one thing need to know, the select clause, in if you are using group by, then the select clause can have only two things. One thing is the data that you are using for grouping. Another thing, you can use its aggregate functions. Only two things can have in the select clause while you are using group by. Cool. So I'm using user ID. So we get the data, right? One orders as 250, two has ordered of 800, four has ordered of 100, and three has ordered of 750, right? So we can check also the three user ID 3 has only single order rate of 750. So 750, you can match the data if you want
Okay.
later on. And what I can do, even after using the group order by, right, group by, I can order by as well, order by user ID. So earlier the data was not in the sequence, right? If I don't
Okay.
have the order ID, then the data was in different format, but now I can order it as well, right? After using group by also I can order. So the first thing we need to know is that whenever we use, you get the reason, right, why we cannot access another data. So like this thing we have done, right, till now, amount from public orders, right, and group by user ID. This thing we have done, right? This is
Yeah.
one. But if I try to access the product ID, will I be able to access product ID if I write it over here? Please print product ID as well.
Now group by we have to mention first in group by, then only select will pick up.
Yes. Because the thing is, when we are grouping this item, these three columns by user ID, so these three columns we are grouping, right? 100,
Oh,
100 and 50. So these three
ach-
columns don't have a single value, right? Because this is 2, this is 1 and 1. We cannot
yeah.
expect one value. What we can do, we can get the sum of, right? What I can do instead, I can use it with this sum of product ID. It is not making sense, but I'm just using it just for the sake of concept that we can use it, right? So what will be the sum now? 1 1 and 2. 4 will be the sum for user ID 1, right? 4 is there, right? Over here it's 4.
Okay. One.
Have you seen it?
Yeah. Four.
Over here, just look at here. 4 is here, sum. Okay, wait, just to make sure you are able to get sum as sum of product ID, product ID as total amount, right? Now it will make more sense to you, right? Over here you can just see 4, sum of product IDs for user 1 is 4.
It means four orders he has done. That's sum of product.
Okay, look at the data again. Product ID, it's a sum of product ID, right? Sum of product IDs. So for
Okay.
one user, what is the product ID 1, right? Again for one
One.
user, what is the product ID 1? So now the total is 2. So for one
Okay.
user again, what is the product ID 2? So 1
Ach-
1 2 plus 2 4, right? Over
Okay.
here 4.
Okay. Okay.
For 2 user, if you want to check for 2 user, it's 4, right? First 4, then for 2 user 2. So total is 6.
Okay.
Okay. So this is the one thing that we need to see for group by, right? That we can only use the data which is in the group by clause or which is used in aggregate functions, right? Otherwise we cannot use anything else. Data which is in the group by clause, or we can use data by in aggregate function. That's it. Nothing else can be selected or used in the select clause while we are using the group by, right? So now another thing comes, can we use where clause with group by? So let's use users too. Okay, not users, orders only. Orders, right? So can I use, okay, let's say user id, let's say only same item, right? Amount from public and orders, right? Can I use, okay, so let's write first thing group by user id, right? This is, we are getting the answer, right? Can I use the where clause with it? So if I say where user id is greater than 2, right? So if it
Hmm.
if it is if it will work, then only 2 columns I will get, right? And it will work. I can use the where clause with group by. The only thing is the user id, the clause that I'm trying to write should where user id greater than 2, right? This clause, where clause, should appear before the group by. Okay, after
Okay.
grouping, because post this group by, the rows is not in a linear fashion, right? It has already been grouped, right? So the where clause will not work with the group data. Where clause will work
Okay.
with only normal data without group data. Cool. So we can use where clause with the group by, but the thing is we need to use it before grouping of the data. So that means before group by, right? So again, let's check the orders and then again write the query. So that user id from public users, right? From public okay, my bad, orders, and then group by user id, right? Okay, user id amounts, okay, I have written reverse. Amount should be here and sum should be here. Cool. This is the data, right? But what if I want, and I can even write the where clause over here, right? Where id user id is greater than 2. Cool. So this is the data that I have right now. What I want to filter out data further as well, right? This is the group data, right?
Okay.
This is the value of the group data, right? So I
Okay.
want to filter it out more. I want the data where the sum value should be greater than 100.
Okay.
So how can I achieve that? We know that where clause we cannot use, right, to filter out data. Where clause will work with only linear data, not group data, right? So when we have already grouped the data and I want to filter out group data as well, so how can I achieve
Okay.
that? This same thing will work, right? That's why having clause is there. Having clause is to filter out group data, and where clause
Acha.
is also used for filtering out data, but linear data, right? Group data cannot work with the where clause. Cool.
Okay.
So now tell me, how can I make sure that I can I can check. I mean, can you tell me how I will be able to write the query where the amount should be greater than 100?
Having
Yes, having.
second column, what was the name that greater than 100 amount?
Okay, cool.
Okay. That's
Right.
okay.
This is the one way. The
Okay.
thing is, if I mean, it's hard to speculate, right? So that's why I'm not. Because the length of the video will also get.
Yeah, as
So there
total
is
given,
some
right? Yeah.
that it can be increased. So that's why it's better if I just over here. If I do what I'm doing, I'm creating a total sum, right?
Hmm.
and then I'm trying to use total sum over here, right? So what's
Okay.
the issue?
Yeah.
Why I'm not able to use total sum over here? I mean, this is the way people usually say that, okay, this is how we can do it.
Yeah.
See what happens. This select phase is executed at the end, not at the starting, right? Because
Okay.
if it at the very beginning of the orders table, I mean, it's very intuitive and very simple thing, that at the very starting of the table, if I start to make sum of all the rows, right, it will take more time, right? If I have 10 million records, then it won't make sense, right, for me to take out the sum of 10 million rows, right? So
Okay.
it's better to filter out data first, and then performs more queries, right? So over
Okay.
here, if you will see, select
Acha.
clause happens at the end when we have done everything, right?
Okay.
So from this orders table, we'll go to the orders table. First, we'll filter out the data using the
Hmm.
where clause. Then we will
Okay.
group the data, and then we will filter out the group data, right? And
Okay.
then whatever is left, we will select that only, right?
Okay.
It's not like we will select everything in the start and then we
Acha.
will filter out something and then we'll map already all selected data with the data that this rest query is giving us, and then we are opting out some of the data. It doesn't really make sense, right?
Okay.
So this thing, I mean, this thing don't work, so we directly use this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this
Okay.
won't work,
Okay.
this will work, right? We can directly
Okay.
use things over here, right? So
Acha.
let's change the example. Over here we have seen that we need to now, I mean, what we have done is that we want the user ID and we want the sum, total sum of the amount he has ordered, right? So see, now we know two things, right? Now I know the name of the users also I want. So what I can do, we have completed the subquery already, right? Select first name and select first name and last name. Okay, my bad. Last name to from public users where id equals to user id. Can we do this?
Subqueries we have not done actually.
Oh, okay, my bad, sorry. Okay, all right, okay, okay, we will do it in later classes, we'll see this, right? So okay, so this was the data that we have opt for. Now what we will do is, that was select loss subquery that we were doing, right?
Okay.
So we'll say it in later sessions. So this is the thing, and what we have done, we have seen we wanted a user who has total sum of more than 100, and the user id should be greater than 100, right? So let's
Okay.
try to find out some data that makes the sum meaning, right? So now I want, the very first thing that we have done was making sense, right? We wanted user id and we wanted the amount, right? Amount. So from public user orders group by user id, this data is making sense, right?
Yeah.
Public, okay, orders, this data is making sense, right? User id and the total amount of orders that they have done. So order by user id. So this data is better, right? So this data is
Okay.
making sense and is better as well, right? But now I want something else. Now I want data, or I want the user id and the number of orders that they have ordered, right? So
Okay.
how can I change the query now? So what I can do, I can just directly go public, okay, not select asterisk. So there will be user id, right? There will be user id, and I will add the query later on, something else, orders, okay, public orders, and then it's obvious, right? Group by user id, right? And we will eventually order by user id as well, right?
Okay.
But over here, aggregate function only we can use, right?
Okay.
So one has ordered 3, two has ordered 2, and okay, I have to update the query as well as total orders, right? So user ID has 1 has made 3 orders, 2 has made 2 orders, and 3 and 4 has made 1 order each. Cool.
Okay.
So now what I can do, now if I want that, okay, please give me the average amount of the order. So what I can do, there is some, right, sum and amount, right? And if I try to divide it with the count, then we will get average, right? Okay, I need to make sure that it is. Oh, what happened? Okay, wait. So let me enter it again. Okay, my bad. Let me update it as average, average, average order price. Okay, so this is the data that we get, right, for the average order price. But we already have one aggregate functions, so that we don't have to do this, right? It's just avg, average amount. So match these two values, right? Both are same, right? Match both queries, one in which I am using average function, in another I'm taking the sum, then I'm taking count, and then I'm dividing it, right? This
Okay.
basic operation Postgres is able to do, all right? We have covered this in last session.
Yeah.
So it's just a very basic, right? Postgres can even do the cosine, sines, even trigonometry it can do, apply.
Yeah.
So this is a very basic item that you can do, right? All right, you can just directly play with it also, right? Like you can, if you want to know that, okay, 10 plus 5, whether, okay, 10 plus 5, whether it will entertain it or not, right? Total 15 I got it. So it's able to handle the basic arithmetic operations. Cool. So now this data is making sense, right? So that's how we
Yeah.
get to know that, okay, the Flipkart is having average order of 14. And now let's say one thing, let's say Flipkart owner is making some comment that, okay, our average order price is, what is our average order price, right? So he will ask his developer, okay, please provide me the average order price, right, that it is in our Flipkart. So it will get this data, right? It's 1400 for Flipkart. It used to be 1400 for Flipkart 1 year earlier. So nowadays it can be different, right? So if the founder has asked you to, okay, to give me data, then this is the data that you will get, right?
Okay.
Another thing that will happen is that, for example, you want to give some vouchers for, and it happens, this is a real life scenario, that we want to provide vouchers to the user who are most active, right? So who are the user who are most active? We can check with the number of counts, right?
Okay.
Number of order count that they are making, right?
Yeah.
But so if I'll do it, okay, from, so I want, so let's notice it. Okay, no, let me show the data. So okay, not this data, this data, right? Average order data. Now I want select user id, and then count from public orders grouped by user id, right? And now if I want that, if I want to order by, okay, let's see it on the demo. So now over here I can see that one user has 3, right? But
Mm.
first user has made the maximum orders, right? But the amount of order is the minimum, right?
Okay.
Average amount is the
Yeah.
minimum, right, out of all these users. So
Yeah.
even if the user 3 and 4 has made only a single order, but the thing is, we the company will make more profit, right?
Mm.
With less order amount, company make less profit. With larger order amount, company makes more profit, right? It's simple maths.
Yeah.
So they don't want to give the vouchers or the gifts to the users who are making very less average orders, right? So it will not choose based on the number of orders, right? It will choose based on the average order amount, right? So it will based on the average order amount, right? This is how it will get, and by default we get the maximum at the top, right, average amount. But
Okay.
let's say if we want minimum to be at the top, then how can I do it?
Order by.
Yeah, very nice, order by. But order order by user ID I can do, right? Order by user ID I can do, and it will be order by user ID. But what if I want to do user order by the amount? Now I want to order by using the descending order, right? Maximum I want at the top. Right now it's order by user ID, no? So what I'll use in order by? I guess you haven't
Order
worked with.
by average.
The default order is ascending, right? This is descending. See, the thing is, you need to know what happens, right? There are different clauses. Select clause is different entity. From clause is different entity. Select clause is where clause is different entity. Group by clause is different entity. Having clause is different entity. Order by is different entity, right? And data
Okay.
starts propagating after this orders, right? From this orders table, we get every data to the
Okay.
next part. So from this thing I get every data for the group by, right? So I can group
Okay.
by user ID. Now after this group by, any data that I will get over here will be group data, not the linear data. So I will be able
Okay.
to use only aggregate functions also over here.
Okay.
This was the very basic first item. See, right? I cannot use, right? I can use only data which is written in the group by clause, or I can use aggregate functions, right? So that means I can
Okay.
use only user ID, right? Because user ID I have used in the order by, or I can use only aggregate functions, right? So the
Okay.
sum and average we want to use it over here, right? Average only. So data propagate from here. From here we get all the data, then we filter, linear filter by where clause, then we group by using group by clause, then we filter that data again by having clause, and then we can eventually order by. Then
Okay.
so if I have used group by, then data is already group, right? We are just using having clause to filter out that group data, but still for the order by we will have group data, right?
Okay.
So that check that in group data only two things we can access. One thing by which by the column by which we have group, or aggregate functions.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay, so we have covered group by and having clause, right? You
Okay.
understand their usage, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yesterday
Got
we have covered offset and limit, so we can directly jump into the subqueries today. Alright, so it will be fast. So
it. Okay.
alright, so what is a subquery? Hello.
On the main query, we can on the results we can apply again a query.
On the Okay, so the nested query is the subquery, right? A query within a
Okay.
query is called subquery.
Okay.
So what is the example of subquery? So let's see. There are different types of subqueries as well. We will see, and why we want subquery. Okay, the reason why. First of all, why we want the subquery.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
What why we want to make make use of a query, and then and the result of it again in another query. Why we want to nest a query. All right, so let's not take some time because we want to course to end early on as well. So let me tell you, the thing is, if you want data from multiple tables, right, we have only two
Yeah.
options. One is join and another one is subquery. So the drawback with the joins is that if I try to join a lot of columns, right, so
Mm.
that means that I don't filter out the data based on certain conditions on my joins. Then it have to hold a lot of data, right? First it has to combine a lot of data.
Mm.
First it has to match a lot of data, then it has to combine a lot of data, then it has to keep it in the buffer memory, right? That would be the RAM.
Mm.
And then out of that particular data, the filtering, ordering, sorting will happen, right?
Okay.
So this is the first thing. And what happens in the production environment, we have a time limit. 5 seconds, 10 seconds or 20 seconds max, right? If a query is not able to give you the answers in 20 second max, then you won't be able to run that particular query. It will always give you an error. The option would be to increase. If you want to run that particular query to get the data, then your option would be to extend the connection timeout of your database, so that if your query is taking 40 or 50 seconds, then from 20 you can extend to the 50, 60, and that will take a lot of time, right? Because it's production environment. No one will allow you directly for you a single query, right? They will ask you to write something else, and
Okay.
that's why they are not paying you to make your life easier, right? They are
Okay.
paying you to make their life easier, so they don't want you to make them do some things. Even the engineering manager
Okay.
won't allow it. So the other alternative is subqueries, right? Especially in the case where you want little data. The subquery will be executed, the timeout won't be there. So if I want a single data and I don't want a chunk of data, right? If I just want a user ID and I even have the user ID, right? Then why would
Okay.
I join the orders table with user tables? It won't make sense, right? Because I
Okay.
just want a single data. I can just directly get it from a subquery. That I was trying to do in earlier on, right? I wanted to fetch the username, user first name and last name from the user table, and then I was trying to append it with the other data in the select query.
Okay.
So the reason why we want the subquery is that because when we have the data, it is used when we want data from multiple tables, first thing, right? Otherwise, if you want data from a single table, there is no need for subqueries, first thing. Another thing,
Okay.
if we want data, I mean there is self join. I mean there is a single scenario where we can use the self query, sorry, subqueries on a single table, but that table is different. That table should have the foreign key that is pointed to itself. Like for example, an employee table, right? For employee table, what would be there? It will be an ID, right? And then employee name, right? And then manager ID. Then this manager is also an employee, right?
Okay.
So this is how, this is a cyclic. This manager ID is also referring to the same. This is a foreign key for the same table, right? Manager
Okay.
will also be a user, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, manager will also be an employee. So in this particular scenario, where the foreign key is also on the same table, right, is pointing to the same table, in that particular scenario we can use the join as well. That join is called self join. And in case when we want to subquery, then there is no self join self subquery. It would be a normal subquery, right? But it's in case of joins we call it self join, because we join the table with itself. Instead of joining two different tables, we join the same table with itself. It's called self join. We'll see the join, self join in the later sessions. But right now what we need to know, whenever we want to fetch data from multiple tables, we have two options: joins and subqueries. Subqueries is little faster, and it's better if you want a little data, only a little data or no data from a particular table. Because if we want to use a particular data just to filter out, right? If we just want user ID, I don't even want the user ID as a result. I want to make sure that out of one user ID I get some data. So I don't need that particular data, but I want the other data that I will get, and I don't want to use that data as well. I mean in the select phase, or sorry, select clause. I just wanted to filter out the data. Some data I want from another table to filter out the data. So the
Okay.
better option is that we use a subquery for that, because otherwise we'll join two tables, and after joining two tables I don't want the data out, and I joined the two tables, right? It don't make sense, right? And it will take some more time actually. So okay, let's
Okay.
dive into this subqueries. There are different type of subqueries, right? We are going to cover each one of them. So let's see the data first, what we have, and then try to make the self queries for the users. So we have these two queries, right? These two orders we have, or tables we have. So now I want to get the order data, right? Select asterisk, select every row and column from public users, right? Instead of users, let me do one thing. Select select o dot id, o dot amount, and o dot user id. Okay, o dot user id. Okay, and this from public users. where id equals to 1. Okay, my bad. Oh, okay, again. But the user id does not exist.
O
Okay,
dot inside O
okay,
comma 0.
yes, yes, yes. Okay, now it says o column o dot user id does not exist. Select o dot id, o dot user id, o dot amount for public users. Oh, my bad. Public users orders, I need to make it up. Orders. Now it's saying public dot order does not exist. Orders s, right? So now I get this data, right? This is data that I get, right? Because I have used the id equals to 1. If I'll make it user id equals to 1, then I will get 3 rows, right? But now I want, if I want user name as well, then what I can do, I can simply write a subquery. Select first name, right, from public dot users where id equals to 1, right, as user name. Cool. Okay, now what's the issue? Error near o amount, o dot amount. Okay, comma I have forgotten. Okay, yes, right. Now I have the username as well, right? And now what I can do, now because we know how to concatenate the data, so what we can do, we can just directly use this and this and this and then last name, right? So if we'll do this, okay, last name I guess is empty, right? Let's
Yeah,
go
doesn't.
to main query. Okay, now we have narration here. Cool. So this is how we use this subquery is called select clause subquery. Cool, because the subquery we have written is inside the select clause, right?
Okay.
So this is called select clause subquery. Good. Now we are going to see where clause subquery. So let's select a string from public users. Cool. And users is this and orders is this. Cool. So let's say I want to filter out data and I want to make sure that the user which has been created on 9th, right, after 9th, that only I want to use. Or I have email id, right? If I have email id, cool. So I want to get all the data, all the columns from orders table, right, where id equals to, but I don't have the id right now. What I have the email id of the user. My bad, user id. I don't have the user id, what I have is the email id. Cool. Then what I can do select id from public users where email equals to, and then simple this. So I get this data, right? Because
Okay.
this subquery, what it will do, it will provide me the id of 4, right, user id 4. It will provide select id from this where the email id is Nikhila at the rate gmail. Nikhila at the rate gmail will provide me the 4 data, right, user id. Over here you can also match it by 4 user id, right? So this is a part of where clause subquery, because the subquery is in the where clause, right? But
Okay.
this is also an example of single row subquery. What does it mean by single row subquery? If your subquery will return a single row, then it's called single row subquery. So this particular example can be considered into two sections of subquery. One is single row subquery, another one is where clause subquery. Cool. So the same query, if I make it return multiple rows, right? Instead of email, if I say instead of one email id, if I say where id is less than, where created date is less than, okay. So instead of email id, if I'll say where created date, is equals to this. Cool. Now I will get 3 rows, right? I will get these 3 rows, 1,
Yeah.
2 and 3. If I hit enter, then I get these data, right? For 1, 2, 3 users, 1, 2 and 3 data we have. So now this subquery has given us more than 1 rows, right? So this
Yeah.
is multi-row subquery. The
Okay.
example of above is single row subquery. Cool.
Okay.
So we have completed single row subquery, multiple row subquery, select clause subquery and where clause subquery, right? Because
Okay.
it is also an example of where clause subquery as well, right? So 4 types of subquery we have completed till now. But how many clause we are aware of? Select clause, now where clause, from clause, right? Having clause we have seen a little while ago only. So
Group
what
by
we are
class.
going to see is that, okay, let's cover first from clause, right? So from clause subqueries is one of the most important subquery. Okay, and in this subquery what happens, let's check some data first. Public, from public, orders, right? So from clause subquery what it does, it gives us the data, and the data that we are getting from a particular subquery, it will be treated as a table, right? So we haven't done joins first, so I will take data from basic data. Okay, let's do a stick for now. From clause subquery, right? So the subquery will be over here, right?
Acha.
And over here what I can do, I can just directly take the data from any of the tables. Select asterisk from public orders, right? So this will provide me this data that is at over here, right?
Okay.
And I can directly hit it. And what's happening over here, a subquery in the from clause must have an alias, right? So this thing you must have, because the reason is how will you access the data, right? As demo, let's take demo. Cool, now we have the data, right? And why it is mandatory to use the alias in the select clause subquery, the reason is if I want to filter out the data, if I don't want all this data, right, I just want user id, product id and amount, right? So how will I be able to get it, right? So in, let me take it o1, right? Or po, let's take po. So I can use it as po dot user id, po dot product id and po dot amount. Cool. So this is how I get the data, right? So it is mandatory. If you are using a from clause subquery, then it is mandatory for you to write the,
Okay.
right? What is mandatory? Alias, right?
Yes.
As we need to write, alias we need to provide, because there is no table, right, to access. So the alias is required. All right. So this is the from clause subquery, but it will be not used in the production environment like this. It will be used like over here. There will be a join.
Okay.
We will join different tables, and then based on that data we will try to access, or we will do something else. Like for example, what we can do, we can just make sure that we have the user id. Let's remove all these things, right? Let's remove all these things, and let's take user id and and just use the sum, right? Sum and amount, sum and amount from public orders, right? And then group by user id. Cool. So this is the data that we get. And now what we can do over here, the sum, right? Sum is here, right? What I can do, I can make it as, right, as total amount, right? And then I can hit it. And also what I can do, I can use it po dot total amount, right? It is not sum. I can do po dot user id and po dot total amount. Get you understand this, the latest query that we have written?
Yeah.
In the select clause we can change the name of the column as well, right, to the total amount. And then over here in the select clause we will use as
Okay.
total amount. So this thing also we can do. But usually we provide group by queries over here, or the joins query, or we modify the data to make some other better data. Like we'll join the first name, last name and the other name, or we'll try to join the tables. I mean, if we have address, right? If we have an address, we will join two columns, two tables. One would be the address and one would be the user, right? So the address table will have the different columns like the house number, floor, then nearby, then all these things are strings, right? So we will aggregate those strings, concat those strings, and we'll create a single column. So we'll
अच्छा.
use join and then concatenation, and these things also we will do, right? And we will change the name of the columns as well, right, by using the aliases, so that it
अच्छा.
becomes easier for us to use it. From class subquery we
Okay.
will see later on as well when we will talk about uses. All right. So now how much things we have used seen? We have used single clause subquery first, multi row, single row subquery, multi row subquery, select clause subquery, where clause subquery, and from clause subquery, right?
Okay.
Now we want having clause subquery. Cool. So
Okay.
this will be the sixth query, having clause subquery. So what we can do? Okay, 948. Cool. Okay, having clause subquery. Let me check how we can write having clause subquery. Public and others. Okay, okay. Okay. This is the orders, and from public users, and this is not users, right? And now, so let's try to get amount, right? This thing we were doing, user ID. So having clause of query we want. Okay. Wait. One few things we will see also in a while. So select a user ID and amount. No bad. Some amount, right? From public orders, right? And then group by user ID, right? So this is the group by. Okay, let's open users. Okay, user ID. So this is the subquery. This is the query that we have seen earlier, right? So this will return the data. This data it is returning, right? So what we want to do, we want to filter out, because having we used to filter out data, right?
Okay.
Okay. So now what I will do filter. What we have seen earlier, that we can do this thing, right? Where the sum amount should be greater than 200, right? So the number of rows has been reduced, right? Without this we have 3 rows, right? The 100 row has been reduced if I added a filter using having clause, right? So this thing we have seen, right? But this is the normal having, not having clause subquery, right? There is no having clause subquery. So we want a subquery in the having clause, right?
Okay.
So what we can do, instead of using this, what I can do, I can write in this way that I want a user ID, select ID from public users, who where where select ID from user. Okay, I can write anything, right? Where email equals to email I like. We have covered the I like, right? And Nikhila. Nikhil, let's say Nikhil, right? So the ID of the Nikhila is 4, right? And that would be greater than 2, right? That would be greater than 2, right?
Okay. Yeah.
If I then run this, what I get? Every data. Why is this? Because for every case, the value of Nikhila will be greater than 2, right? So having clause is not filtering out any data, isn't it?
Yeah. It is only selecting.
Yeah. So what can we do instead of this? What else can we write? See, there are two more types of subquery. One is okay, a correlated subquery, and another one is non-correlated subquery. Cool. So
Okay.
what is correlated subquery and what is non-correlated subquery? So this is an example of correlated subquery. Non-correlated subquery, that means that if I just copy paste a subquery and if I'm able to execute it, then it's non-correlated, right? But it's not related to the outer query, right? The nested query is not related to the outer query. But if the nested query cannot be used without the outer query, then it will be a correlated subquery, right?
Yeah.
And where, how can I make sure that I'm using this correlated subquery? How can I update this query into a correlated subquery?
It is already correlated. The first one, the above one that you have written is correlated. No, this one,
Which
the
above?
highlighted one, highlighted one.
I have just told you this is non-correlated. I can just copy paste it, right? This thing, I have given you this example for
Acha.
non-correlated subquery.
Okay.
I can just copy paste this subquery, right, and it can execute on its own.
Acha. Then
Don't
it is
need
not.
the outer query to execute the inner query.
Okay.
So it is an example of correlated, non-correlated subquery.
Okay. Okay. Mm.
Okay, try to answer this, because in this class I haven't made you answer anything, right? And we haven't even discussed why those things also we haven't covered, because you wanted the course to end in a faster manner. So we haven't discussed a lot of stuffs. I mean, which is non-mandatory, right? Why happen, why require, how it evolved. So those things are non-mandatory if you want just do this thing, the conceptual learning. See, it's not that hard. The thing is, I think you haven't practiced it, right? You are not practicing the database, I guess. So if we do this basic thing, right? How can I make sure that one thing is linked to another? We are already doing it, but in different class, not in. Okay, so which query we wanted to make? This query we wanted to make, right? This is also a normal query, and now we wanted to make sure that we want to convert it into correlated subquery, right? We don't have to use the exact same example, right? But the table and database should be same. But if you have any ideas, you can present it now. Otherwise, I'm going to take over.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. So the thing is, from what I can say, instead of, I mean, over here, but what's happening? Every row will be there, right? Every row will be there from this. When the query is executed till here, every row is present, right? Then I'm grouping by, right? Then I'm grouping by. Then I want to filter out some stuff, right? This is what happening, right? So what is the thing that has been passed over here, right? User ID has been passed over here, right? Because there is group by already written over here.
Okay.
So only user ID, because I'm grouping this data by user ID. So the only two things I can use, right? Two things will be passed. One thing that can be used is aggregate function. Another thing will be the column by which I am grouping the data. Cool. So till here, till having clause, if I want to use the data in the having clause, it's obvious that I can use only two things. One is aggregate function and one is the ID, one is the data by which I am grouping, right? So
Okay.
how can I make sure that this is linked with this, right? So to make sure, let me say, okay, we have already, okay, just this, and then instead of this, what I will do, I need it as O, right? And select ID from this, and instead of this, I can just say I I want where select ID, instead of ID, select ID from public users, where email ID, not this. Because when I'm doing this, what happening? I'm selecting from every user, right? Because in
Okay.
where clause I'm checking out the Nikhila, right?
Yeah.
I'm not checking out the email ID. I'm checking out the email ID of every column. I'm not checking out the email ID of a particular user, right? By which
Okay.
I have grouped by. So what I can do, I can just change the query of this, and instead of this, what I can do, instead of select id from public users, what I can do, I should match the, I can match the id, and then based on the id I can select, I can make some checks like select, and what should I select from the users. Okay, okay, so we don't have users over here, so select as from users, from public users. So over here this is the data, right? So I can take one example that that particular user should be created after 7th of September. Cool. So this is the check that we can place, right? So okay, this is the query that we were trying to make, and now what I will do, I will just add over here and select created date, okay, from public users to where id equals to o dot user id, user dot id. Just let me remove this. So this is the first thing. Okay, why it's okay, and then what I can say that okay, this thing should be greater than this. So only Nikhila should be the person, right? Oh my, oh shit, okay, yes. Oh, so now only Nikhila should be the person which we can get the data. Okay, missing from clause entry of users o dot, okay, my
User
bad,
underscore.
id underscore id, right? So now only Nikhila is there, right? And
Mm.
how it is a example of non-correlated subquery, this is the subquery that I have used, right? If I copy
Okay.
paste it and try to run it over here, then I cannot run it, right? Because
Mm.
oh, the reference from the outer query, this
Okay.
is missing, right? So this is an example of correlated subquery, where the subquery cannot be executed standalone, but we can
Okay.
execute it with the outer query only. Cool.
Okay.
So this is the correlated query is the most commonly used, right, in the
Mm.
environment. So we have covered now, one is select clause subquery, second is from clause subquery, right? See from here, see select clause subquery we have done, right?
Mm.
Then we have covered from clause subquery, right? Then we have
Yeah.
covered where clause subquery, where clause subquery we have covered. Then we have covered the having clause subquery, right? Four subqueries we have covered of the clauses. Then we have covered single row subquery, multiple row
Multi.
subquery, six we have covered, right? Then we have covered correlated subquery and non-correlated subquery, right? So
Okay.
till now we have covered 8 subqueries, right?
Okay.
Only one subquery we are going to cover more is called exist subquery. Cool. Then the subquery is also covered, and we are moving in a faster manner. Usually it takes 3 classes to cover these things, but we are moving in a faster way. And the thing is, what is the exist clause subquery, right? So exist clause subquery says there is a exist keyword in every language almost, right? In DB, in SQL language. So okay, let's not, we don't use employee. So we, let's select stick from public orders, right? Then okay, okay, so let's do one thing, create another user. We need to create a user. So let's users, and select asterisk from public users. So let's add one more user, insert into users values, and then the value would be 5, and then okay, Nidhi is there. I don't know her surname as well, I'll leave it blank. And then email id, let's take nidhi@gmail.com, and then email, okay, we have covered. Then phone number, let's take it as +91, and then random. So now we have a user Nidhi, right? We have a user Nidhi which have no orders, right? Because we have recently created
Yeah.
Nidhi, right? So Nidhi has no orders.
Yeah.
So public orders where user ID equals to 5, empty, right? No rows. Cool. So what we will do right now, we will use a access subquery. So what is access subquery? We will try to select, okay, select every column from public orders, right? Everything is clear till now, nothing new. But what we will do in the where clause, we write the exists, right? And inside the exist clause, we will write a subquery. And what will be the subquery for us? Select asterisk from public users where id equals to 2, right? So what it's saying, if it returns, if this subquery returns anything, right, then only it will be true, otherwise it won't be true, right? If I try to hit it, so we are getting every data, right? So what the subquery is saying, it's saying give me every column and every row, every column, right, from public orders, right? So I haven't used, I need to filter it over here, right? But I haven't used filter, I have used access subquery only. So that means if it is saying that okay, give everything, every column and every row from the users table, if there is a order exist, there is a user exist with, okay, if there is a user exist with the user id too. Okay, this is not making that much sense. So let's change this query to where orders, where orders, where orders from public orders where user id equals to 2, right? And there is a order in the orders table, right, with id 2. So I will get every data from the orders table. Or let's reverse, okay. And if I make it 5, there is no order, right, of user
Okay.
id 5. So where clause will give false answer, right? So nothing will be given. So what exist subquery is, whenever we use exist is used to check whether the query written next to it, or whether anything, I mean not just subquery, whether anything written next to it is returning any row or not, right? So this is not
Okay.
returning any row, right? The subquery, if I try to run, it's not returning anything, right?
Okay.
It's returning 0 rows. If it returns any row, then what will happen? The exist query will become true, right? And where query will be, it's similar to that where does not exist, right?
Okay.
So but what we can do, you will never find anyone using where query, exist query in this manner, because I will let you know one thing, that if I want, if I'm writing this subquery, right, because exist clause just check whether someone is returning any rows or not, right? It does not care about the data that they are sending, right?
Okay.
So if I am executing this query, so what is happening over here, I will get this, okay, my bad. So right now, for this particular case, there is no data that's coming, right? So it's completely fine. But if I use this, then there is 2 columns that I'm getting, right? So it checks whether any row is coming, right? Even if a single row is coming, then it will provide the 2, right, data. But I'm just checking the number of rows, right? I'm not checking the data inside it. So why should I ask for all the data, right? Because these are heavy data, 4 byte, right? 4 byte. So these are heavy data that I don't want to get, right? So instead of doing this, what I can do, I can use select one, right? So what will happen, for every case, for every filtered row, it will not choose any columns from the table, it will choose one, right? So the output of this query will be 1 and 1. Got it?
Okay.
Because in the select clause only we select, right, what column we want, right, what data we want. But if I'm saying that okay, I don't want any data, if I'll say that asterisk, then I am saying that okay, give me every data, give me every column from the orders table, right? So I get every column. And I can even say that okay, just give me the user id, the id and user id, right? So I am selecting, right? In select clause I select the data which I want for a particular row. But I can also say that okay, don't give me anything, just give me one. if id equals to 2 exist, then I don't want data from these things, just give me one only. And this thing can be also done, and it is a better way because how much data I'm consuming, only 4 byte and 4 byte, 8 bytes only.
Uh-huh.
So it's better than this, it's better than this thing to take complete query. So
Acha.
what you will find, every time you will see exist query used anywhere, right?
Okay.
So it won't be with asterisk, it will be always with one. Cool.
Acha.
So in this way this query will be better, right? Because we are not asking for multiple data, we just want to check that row exists or not, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if the entire data comes or just one, 7 times one comes, right? It both are same for exist subquery.
Mm.
So this is the way we write the exist subquery. Cool. So all
Okay.
right, let me stop the